Imagine suffering from a mental illness that causes you to believe your significant other is an imposter set on harming you, or which convinces you that books are for eating, or worse yet, that you have somehow become the walking dead. What if you felt like yourself one day and the next day someone else was in the mirror? Scary, right? While some mental disorders, such as depression, can occur naturally, others are the result of brain trauma or other injuries. We may all recognize the names of other more common mental disorders such as bipolar disorder, obsessive-compulsive disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety disorder, or autism spectrum disorder. While all of these mental illnesses and many others that we did not list can be scary for those suffering, there are a few rare psychotic disorders that are especially terrifying. We've described what we think you'll agree are the 5 scariest mental disorders of all time. Though it's often been used in terrifying plot twists, alien hand syndrome is hardly limited to the fictional world. Those with this scary, but fortunately rare, mental disorder experience a complete loss of control of a hand or limb. The uncontrollable limb often seems to take on a mind and will of its own, and sufferers have reported their alien limb attempting to choke either themselves or others, ripping clothing, or scratching to the point of blood. Alien hand syndrome most often appears in patients with Alzheimer's disease, Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, as a result of brain surgery during which the brain's 2 hemispheres have been separated, or mental illnesses. Unfortunately, no cure exists for alien hand syndrome, and those affected by it are often left to keep their hands constantly occupied or use their other hand to control the alien hand. This mental illness is likely one you have never heard of. But yes, it is real. Those who suffer from the very rare, but very scary, mental disorder Boanthropy believe they are cows, often going as far as to behave as such. Sometimes those with Boanthropy are even found in fields with cows, walking on all fours and chewing grass as if they were a true member of the herd. Those with Boanthropy do not seem to realize what they're doing when they act like a cow, leading researchers to believe that this odd mental disorder is brought on by dreams or even hypnotism. Interestingly, it is believed that Boanthropy is even referred to in the Bible, as King Nebuchadnezzar is described as being driven from men and did eat grass as oxen. Imagine craving the taste of a book or wanting to have sex with a car. That's a reality for those affected by Kluver-Bucy Syndrome, a scary mental disorder characterized by memory loss, the desire to eat inedible objects, and sexual attraction to inanimate objects such as automobiles. Not surprisingly, those with Kluver-Bucy syndrome often have trouble recognizing objects or people that should be familiar. This terrifying mental disorder is difficult to diagnose and seems to be the result of severe injury to the brain's temporal lobe. Unfortunately, there is no cure for Kluver-Bucy syndrome and sufferers are often affected for the rest of their lives. They may severely struggle in their daily life in terms of their personal relationships, career, and more. Diogenes Syndrome is more commonly referred to as simply hoarding, and is one of the most misunderstood mental disorders. This mental illness has gained popularity because of popular television shows about those who suffer from it being treated by mental health professionals and is actually more common than you may think. Named after the Greek philosopher Diogenes of Sinope, who was, ironically, a minimalist, this syndrome is usually characterized by the overwhelming desire to collect seemingly random items, to which an emotional attachment is then formed. In addition to uncontrollable hoarding, those with Diogenes syndrome often exhibit extreme self-neglect, apathy towards themselves or others, social withdrawal, and no shame for their habits. It is very common among the elderly, those with dementia, those with a mental health history, and people who have at some point in their lives been abandoned or who have lacked a stable home environment. Dissociative identity disorder, DID, known formerly as multiple personality disorder, is a terrifying mental illness that is included in myriad movies and television shows but is extremely misunderstood. Very generally, less than 1% of people who suffer from DID often have 2 to 3 different identities, and sometimes more. The American Psychiatric Association explains that victims of dissociative disorders suffer from problems with their memory, identity, emotion, perception, behavior, and sense of self. Sufferers routinely cycle through their personalities and can remain as one identity for hours or for years. They can switch identities at any time and without warning, and it's nearly impossible to convince someone with DID that they have it. For these reasons, those with dissociative identity disorder are unable to live normal lives, and therefore usually live in psychiatric institutions.